final week of the regular season for baseball, anticipating a wild card game, and hopefully, if the Cardinals can win that, a series. I'm excited about being able to cover the Cardinals. I'm excited about going to Busch Stadium for Fox 2, doing our shows down there 5 and 6, and hopefully a clinch at night, where I know it'll be different because of COVID, and I know everybody won't be in there, but I'm sure the players will be having a fun time. They just sent out a text message, the Cardinals did, where they're going to do everything in the clubhouse with just the team, maybe have some pool footage. Then they'll have the players come out on the field. You know, they'll take a picture in front of the Jumbotron that says postseason participant, or what will it say, by the way? Will it say second wild card champion? What will it say?
I don't know. That's a great question.
But either way, there's
National
going
League
to be
wild card winner. Probably.
There you go.
They won't even preface one or two. They'll just say wild card winner. Yay! For updates within the clubhouse, see Randy Rosarena's phone.
Oh, that's actually that's interesting. Do you think after that? I think probably every single sports team was like, "Hey guys, there's a basket over here. Everybody, everybody take your phones, okay, and your wife's phone and your girlfriend and whoever else. Everybody put your phone in the basket, and you can get them in about 30 minutes. So hopefully that never happens again."
They might have to do that. Let's see, a couple of young kids, isn't there, that probably weren't here. Woodford wasn't here before. He wouldn't do something like that. I'm not even sure he, It's interesting, though. That just popped in my head when you said nobody's allowed in. I went, well, what are we going to do? Wait for somebody's phone to tweet out what's going on inside the locker room?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, they're gonna have some pictures and videos on Instagram and all that. It just probably won't be live, and I get that because Randy Rosarena and Mike Schild had a nice little, probably a talk a couple years ago, and then Randy Rosarena was no longer here, which I don't think was because of that incident. I also don't think it necessarily helped the cause when you do something like that. But hey, mistakes happen, and we move on. But big picture, even though it's a hot day, when you get close to October and you see October at the end of the week here on the calendar, especially in St. Louis, hopefully it gets a little cooler, the air gets a little crisper. It just is a very special time of year. Now, I'm not just saying this because I live and work in St. Louis, but October baseball, Red October, it means more here. And we know we're getting at least one game. Let's be real. The Cardinals are going to clinch. If not tonight. Okay, they're going to get the wild card game here eventually. And you just wonder if it's going to be more than one. And you're hoping for that. You're
hoping for that. To your point, it's going to get crisper, cooler, and Cardinal fans are going to start breaking out those red jackets and the red hoodies. And they're like, oh, we missed this. We haven't had one of these in a while. So it could be really special. It could be fun to see if they can continue this. But I'll be honest, when I got it up this morning and start trying to figure, okay, what do we got going on today? One of the things that did pop in my head was, what kind of craziness is going to happen in the game tonight? Are we going to see some, crazy double play ball where it goes 7-2-3, whatever. You're just going, what's going to happen tonight that we haven't seen? And you're going to go, well, I didn't see that one coming. I mean, I don't know what it'll be tonight.
And you have a really good pitching matchup. You have Adam Wainwright on the mound versus Brandon Woodruff, who's been really, really good as well. Woodruff's got a 2.52 ERA, Waino 3.05. So on paper, you're thinking a pitcher's duel type game. You wonder, though, and I throw this out there to you, Jim, and also the text line. I want to ask a bunch of Cardinal questions, and hopefully the text line gets involved. Give us your turning point of the Cardinal season. What are you most excited about, or what do you like most about October baseball? I think another question is, wild card game. How would you like that game to go pitching-wise? Let's be realistic, too. You'd love to say, okay, Waino's going to go 9. That's probably not going to happen against a Dodgers team. How would you like that pitching scenario to go? Let's say if Waino goes 5-6 innings. Who you want coming in after that? Because you have some interesting options now with the Jack Flaherty potentially as a bullpen option. Maybe you say, okay, I don't like him coming out of the pen. Let's go with the guys that we used all year. If it's Genesis Cabrera and Gio Gallegos and Luis Garcia as he's come on board here. When you said, though, Jim, about the craziness that could happen tonight, I almost feel like if the Cardinals are going to lose a game at this point with this amazing 16-game winning streak, wouldn't you rather have it be like 12-1? They just get blown out, right? As opposed to because if they lose, okay, it's going to be 3-2, a weird call, this happens, a bad call at the plate, a blooper, and then we always talk about this with the NCAA tournament. If a team is undefeated, and every once in a while it happens in the NFL, if a team gets close like that Patriots team to running the table in the regular season, what is the silly media narrative? And maybe it's silly, maybe there's some truth to it. Does it matter to you at all? Would you like to see the Cardinals lose a game before the wild card game? Does that matter? Because we do talk about that, right? Let's get that one out of the system, restart. But I also think there's something to this team right now is rolling. They don't think they can lose right now.
They do. Well, you got 6 left. Mm-hmm. You get to 22 at that point. That would be a bit much. Because I do have the look. You're a gambler, right?
I am. I enjoy sports investments.
Put a wager on something. I'll get to a point where I go, the do factor is coming in. So let's get the one out of the way and let's move on. So I don't have a problem if they lose at some point here. I don't even care if they lose 2 more. It doesn't matter between now and Sunday. Just the one thing you got to do is just keep playing smart baseball like they are right now. Let's not, if it's 12-1, okay, and your pitching's not there one night, that's fine. But you don't want something that's sloppy where you're just throwing the ball through all over the place again. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. What happened to this grade A defense that has helped them, surge to the 16-game win streak? That's for me is the most important thing. You don't want to get sloppy right now.
Here's why I don't want them to lose.
Oh.
Because I'm very realistic. I'm a very reasonable person. And I understand, and I think most fans do as well, that despite how amazing the Cardinals have played the last 2.5 weeks, we all know that in a one-game scenario versus likely a Scherzer or a Walker Buehler type pitcher, you can very easily be one and done. So to me, this streak represents also fun, exciting playoff baseball. Because again, let's be real. The Cardinals' postseason run, I hate to be negative, but it might be one game. There's a very good chance they lose that wild card game. Now, can they win it? Of course. It's basically a toss-up. But that's not going to be an easy game to win. So to me, the last 2.5 weeks have been almost as exciting as a postseason run. And so if you have another week of this streak, I mean, this is the biggest Cardinals regular season story in how long? Is it fair to say going back to Big Mac? I mean, for regular season,
pretty close.
For us focusing on a streak or a record in the regular season, this is my 14th year in St. Louis. I can't remember so much fun and focus on something going on in the regular season. I mean, Albert did amazing things, but I can't think of anything like this.
Time, I mean, this is half a month. I would have to agree with that. There's been a couple really good. I'll remember, what was it, the 4-game sweep in Chicago a couple of years ago where they just, nailed down a playoff spot. Rizzo was hurt. They just smoked them and all the craziness there. But for a length of time, like you said, over a half a month, this is probably as big as anything I've seen in the regular season, probably since McGuire. Or if you want to go a season, the 2004 season alone was just an unbelievable summer. Over the course of the year, that team was just unbelievable. But this is an all-time event, no doubt, in Cardinal history.
And I guess it's fair to say I am prisoner of the moment, and also my memory. It just doesn't work. Look, when you're in it, we remember the game that happened Sunday. We remember a couple weeks ago. I mean, 2011 was also pretty dang crazy. If you remember the last month, I mean, of course October, but even September, getting in there, I'll never forget, because I used to be down at the stadium a lot more. And I remember when they were about 10.5-ish games out. If you remember what one of the storylines was, it was the Cardinals, now that they're quote-unquote out of it, let's give Tyler Green, right? More of an opportunity to see if he can basically come to fruition with all of this talent where he was off the charts athleticism, but he never figured out in the big leagues in terms of especially just offensively. But I remember asking Tony La Russa after a game when they were around 10.5 out, hey, is this a time where you give Tyler Green that opportunity? And he basically said something along the lines of, I think that's kind of disrespectful. You're basically saying we're out of it. And we're like, well, and sure enough,
Skip,
he was
I gotta
right.
tell you, you're not looking too good right now.
Not the first time or the last time. I've been very, very wrong, and very glad that I was wrong.
Well, it was the same thing with this team. I was like, you and I have debated it all summer. I give you credit because you thought they were going to get closer to this than I did. I was like, there's no chance. I don't even think they're going to get to 81 wins. I still felt that way back, over a month ago. But it's cliche. It really is, but that's why you never quit, right? I mean, and there are times and you'll hear a guy with a cliche statement after a game, right? You're like, come on, man, give me something other. Oh, we're playing hard, we'll just keep coming back out tomorrow and keep whatever. You're not very good. Don't. Well, this team found something unlike anything we've seen ever in the history of Cardinal baseball. It's pretty awesome.
And it should be a great example for every team moving forward. Because if there was ever a team that, if you go back 2 months, when the Cardinals, after the awful June, remember, because early on, they're pretty good. If you talk about 6 weeks in, they had about the best record in baseball. About 6 weeks in, they have injuries. They have an absolutely terrible June. And then after June, they were pretty much a 500-ish team for a long time, until September, basically. And there was also, look, this team was never bad. But this team, you never looked at it and said, this is an elite team. They just weren't playing like that. Okay? And even when you look at them on paper right now, if you looked at a team like the Yankees on paper, and I just rolled out the names for you, you could say, okay, I could see that team going on a 16-game winning streak. If you rolled out the names of the St. Louis Cardinals, especially after the trade deadline, when they're getting contributions from Luis Garcia, TJ McFarland, 36, 37, 38-year-old Jay Happ, John Lester, Wade LeBlanc, and this is the team that goes on a 16-game winning streak, well, now forever, we can say, okay, if we ever ask John Mozeliak, Mike Schilt, next year, when they're 48-48, hey, I mean, what's going on here? And look at last year. Nobody thought that team was going on a 16-game winning streak. And by the way, we always bring up 2011 as something that, that's an outlier. Well, it's 10 years later. This feels like, look, it's already an outlier in the regular season.
This will trump that.
There you go. I'm not saying they're going to win the World Series.
Right.
And by the way, they very easily could lose the wild card game. But this is only 10 years later in the same city, same town, St. Louis Cardinals, and you have another ridiculous outlier that nobody saw coming.
There is was something that just popped in my head that because you were talking about past seasons. This is before your time or my time, but I remember back. I don't know. I wish I remember the dates, but I have to go back. But 1964 Cardinals went on another similar run where they were out by double digits. And I don't remember somebody older than me will remember it. I'd have to go research it, but they were down by double digits. The Phillies collapsed. They got in, and then it was just American National went right to the World Series, and they beat the Yankees in the World Series. A similar type situation. And those that were around for it will always say, man, it was so magical in the last month to watch the Cardinals dominate and, watch the Phillies collapse. And we're seeing it right now. I mean, we watched the Padres, who were supposed to be the end-all, be-all to wrap up that wild card spot. They just completely collapsed, left the door open, and the Cardinals just went on some unbelievable tear that I can't say we'll never see again because we're talking about it again, but unlike anything we've seen thus far. And I don't know how they're going to lose, but they're going to lose a game.
You think so?
I think so.
Okay. The wild card game, all that?
I was just going to say, I hope it's not next Wednesday.
I'm excited for that. I'm telling you, look.
By the way, the Dodgers, they've won 100 games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Put in perspective how good they are. I just saw this in the LA Times before we started. They will be the fifth team to win 100 games in the divisional era. That's since 1969. That finishes second. It's only the fifth time it's ever been done. It was the 2018 Yankees, 2001 A's, 93 Giants, who did not even make the playoffs because they got beat by the Braves that year. There was only West and East got in. and the 1980 Orioles, who never got into the playoffs. So that's how good this Dodger team is. And again, like I said to you yesterday, they're sitting there going, well, wait a minute. We're going to win 100-plus games, and we got to face this group that just won 16 or more in a row? It's not really fair to them either.
That's where you got to give all the credit in the world to the San Francisco Giants, because we are now in the final week of the season. And still, I think if you asked most folks in baseball that follow the game, would you rather have the Dodgers or the Giants in terms of a chance to go to the World Series? I still think everybody would say the Dodgers. And yet, here's the Giants. They have not fallen off. I know Brandon Belt now is injured, and we'll see what happens there in terms of him being able to play at all in the postseason. But a month in, it's a nice story. Okay, 2 months in, all right, they're a little better than we thought. They're eventually going to fall off. This team might win 105 games. I also think it's nice to see, look, you're always going to have teams like the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Red Sox, and they're going to have 200 million plus payrolls, okay? And that's the Dodgers. Now, do they also do a really good job of making trades, of finding value? I mean, look at some of their players. Justin Turner, Max Muncy, Chris Taylor. Go back to Kike Hernandez. Those were also rans at other teams that came over there, figured it out, and became all-star type players. But you also got to love the fact that San Francisco, look, do they have money to spend? Yes. But how have they built their team? They have this super platoon lineup, and they were able to go out there and get really strong starting pitching that people didn't look at as all-star caliber, right? I mean, everybody knows Kevin Gossman's good, DeSclafani, Alex Wood, but those weren't guys just that people were knocking on the door to sign. Most of those guys are one-year deals, and they pieced together in a very smart way a really good baseball team. So it's nice to see that you can also win that way. You don't, look, I know they spend money. You got Buster Posey, you got some big contracts, but also you can beat a Dodgers team by doing it a different way. Right.
Nobody expected them to just go on this tear. And to your point, okay, they got Alex Wood, they got Gausman. These guys were, I'm not going to say retreads, but they were guys who needed help. They needed a little fixing. It's not like you went out and got the top aces that were available on the market, and somehow they fixed almost all of them. Johnny Cueto, when he's been healthy, has been back to being a little bit more like Johnny Cueto. And then the lineup, as you just pointed out, it's lefty this day. We're going to play this guy, righty that day. And then probably the most unsung player of that team has been the resurgence of Crawford, the shortstop.
He's really good.
He's having a career year, and he is the leader of that team right now. I mean, they just, whatever they need, he does it.
And you have guys that are not household names. For example, if the Giants make a run, you're going to hear the name Lamont Wade Jr. He's really, really good. But he's not a household name. He's not a superstar. But look at his numbers. And they have guys like that. I know Mike Yastrzemski's come on, and he's not even now starting every night. And they get Chris Bryant. So they got some legit offensive stars. Buster Posey's also having a resurgent type season. And it's just funny because all year long we've all basically been waiting for the Giants to fall off. At this point, it would almost be sad if they lost the division on game 162.
It would be.
If you're them, right? Yeah. I mean, you basically led wire to wire.
Now, luckily, they have a 2-game lead with 6 left. They get Arizona, and I forget who. They've got a pretty weak schedule the last series, but they're getting Arizona, and let me see if I can find out. They're Padres, and the Padres are done. The Dodgers will get. Who are the Dodgers getting? The Dodgers get Milwaukee at the end of this weekend, which is really weird. That's an odd mix-up.
And Milwaukee really won't have anything to play for.
No.
Again, they're going to want to make sure their starters don't go deep. They're going to make sure their bullpen is relatively rested, whereas the Dodgers will have something to play for, you'd think, until the final game of the season.
Dodgers get the Padres for 3 this week, and then they'll wrap up with Milwaukee. But and another thing, they have 102 wins right now, San Francisco. The most wins in the divisional era for a National League team is 108, the 75 Reds and the 86 Mets. If the Giants win out, which they could because they got a weaker schedule, that'd be 108 wins. And do you ever, can we all sit there and go, really? The 86 Mets and the 75 Reds in the same breath with this year's Giants team?
Well, that's what's crazy. And I don't mean to say this in a disrespectful way, but what's the Mariners team that went crazy, right? You had the Mariners team years ago where they had Randy Johnson and Ken Griffey Jr. and Alex Rodriguez, and then the team that went off, wasn't it after all those guys had left? Yeah. I know you had Ichiro, you had Brett Boone, but that was also a team that they never stopped winning, but you never looked at them and really thought they were going to win the World Series. And I hate to say it, but I feel the same way about the Giants. I just look at them, and I'm just wondering, is this... Well, look, we know it's sustainable. I do think, though, that the postseason is a different animal than the regular season. If you have 5 good starters, and you can do that platoon throughout the year, you can win a lot of games with 5 really strong starters. In the postseason, how many starters are you going to use? Maybe 4, more like 4. 3.
Yeah. If you got 2 studs, you're using
exactly
3.
And if you're the Dodgers, you don't think they're going to manipulate some off days to try to get basically Scherzer, Buehler, who knows what's happening with Clayton Kershaw. But that's where a team like the Dodgers, you can ride a Max Scherzer, right? Go back to the year, one of the years, the third year, 2014? Madison Bumgarner pitched like every 3 days. And so that's, to me, what the Giants don't have this year. I also could see the Giants being a team that really, really good team built for the regular season, but when you get to the playoffs, when you have off days, you can really use your ace relievers and your ace starters more than you could in the regular season. I think that's where a team like the Dodgers get elevated. I could also see a team like the Cardinals being elevated that way, right? The depth of the starting rotation has not been their strength all season long. I understand it's better now, but if you can roll out Waino and John Lester, we'll see what happens with a Jack Flaherty. But with off days, if you can basically use your top 4 relievers and basically nobody else, if Flaherty comes out of the pen, if a Dakota Hudson comes out of the pen, you can kind of just eliminate some of your weaknesses there, which is the back end of your starting rotation. And again, this is for most of the year.
Right.
And not having tremendous depth in the bullpen, even though you really like about 5 of those guys.
If the Cardinals can get into a series, that means they have to win the wild card. One of the reasons I like their chances was what you just brought up, is the bullpen. You got off days, so you're going to be able to use guys a lot more than you do, right now during the regular season. And think about the guys that have emerged in the pen for Mike Shildt. You're almost 6 deep in terms of relievers where you go, okay, I'm okay with TJ McFarland getting a key out. I'm okay with Garcia doing that. I'm okay with the law firm doing it. There's 5, and then you can throw Cody Whitley in there, and who knows what happens with Flaherty. I'm real skeptical on Flaherty after watching him the other day. I'm almost to the point just don't use him anymore.
I would like to see, though, I want to see 2 more outings, even if they're an inning or a 2, just so you can potentially, you want to know what you have. Because I agree with you. If Jack Flaherty has 2 more bad outings, I don't want him to pitch in the postseason. But I want to know what I have. Like, if he figures it out over the next couple outings, I want to be able to say, look, for an inning or 2 at a time, I really like that option.
That's the one thing. Look, we got to find one thing we don't like or complain, right? You won 16 in a row. That was the one thing over the weekend, and we kind of all forgot about it because there's so much craziness happening within each game. That's the one thing I was like, that really wasn't a good idea after watching what happened to Flaherty. What was it, 18 pitches, something like that? I'm like, if that's all he was getting, he should have did that in a bullpen, on the side or down in the minor leagues. I wasn't real comfortable with what I saw from him. He struck out the first guy, and after that, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. This is not good for him.
I think that particular situation was the perfect storm of doubleheader. You had an extra man, and also the fact that they felt that because Jack Flaherty is a starter, you can let him prepare better to start the game as opposed to just because we know how routine-oriented these guys are. And if he's going to come in, you want it to be a clean inning. Okay, you want it to be the third inning of a doubleheader, but you don't know exactly when that inning's going to start. So I understand rolling him out there. And I do think that Jack Flaherty is so talented that you want to know if you can use him as a weapon in the postseason. And that's why if you go back to 2013, I think this is my opinion. Mm-hmm. And we all talked about this the whole playoffs. So I don't want to hear this being Monday morning quarterback. I thought that one of the big misses was not only bringing Michael Wacha in for Travis Ishikawa, but if you remember, that was 2014.
Yes.
Okay, so 2013.
I remember it well.
I misspoke. 2013 was the year where Michael Wacha comes on as a rookie, and he's unbelievable.
Uh-huh.
And he gets you to the World Series. Okay, and then 2014, I understand it wasn't as great. He was a little banged up at the end, but also knowing how much of a weapon he was. Wouldn't you want to see if you could use him throughout the postseason? Now, if the Cardinals thought he was done, okay, well, why do you even bring him in against Travis Ishikawa when your entire season's on the line? But more so, if you have a weapon like that, don't you use him throughout the playoffs? That's the thing with Jack Flaherty. Like, if Jack Flaherty is on, he can be a tremendous weapon for you.
I get that, but based on what I saw Friday, no. Now, again, he'll probably get another outing here at some point. This week between now and the end, and that'll be the determining factor. But it was too much of a white gloves type situation where you're like, well, we're going to let him pitch, but we really got to be real careful. If you got to be careful with him or you're worried that he's going to be too amped up, you just got to shut him down. You know, that's my feeling on it. But you know what? He the way this season's going, he might, show up and strike out all three guys he faces in the next inning, and you'll be talking next week in the playoff series and go, well, Flaherty's good to go for an inning every other night. So there's that. It was really just put me on edge. That I was like, wow, this guy can't even get out of the inning. He's scuffling, and you're already going, that's all, bud. Come on. Go get a shower. We got ice cream in the back for you.
I'm just big on stuff plays, talent plays, because you can go back to last year. I'm trying to look up the game here. But remember, Jack Flaherty last year did not have a great season. His ERA was 4.91. And remember the talk when they get to the series against the Padres was, do you want to use Jack Flaherty?
Yeah.
Right? And so what? He pitched Game 5. And I know he hadn't pitched well towards the end of that year, but to me, it's cliche, but a Jack Flaherty type, a guy like that, rises to the occasion. He wants that moment. He wants to face the Padres in the postseason. He wants to face his hometown Dodgers potentially in a wild card game. So go back to last year. This is a guy who had an ERA approaching 5 during the regular season, and towards the second half of that year, he was not very good at all. And in his postseason start last year, he goes 6, he struck out 8, and he allowed 1 earned run against the Padres in that crazy wild card series.
Yeah. Look, the only reason I say that about Flaherty because he hasn't been right, okay? And when he can be Jack Flaherty, he's the best they got. He's better. Sorry, no disrespect to Waino. He's the best pitcher they got when he is right. And I would much rather shut him down and say, have a good offseason. Let's get you back to 100%. So when we start in spring training, you're 100% and ready to go for next year, and I can count on you for 30 starts, as opposed to, let's see if I can Mickey Mouse this thing a little bit and get you an inning here or there to maybe be effective and not hurt your shoulder or whatever's ailing. That's the one thing that it just had that danger feeling after he got, I was like, whoa, what are we doing here? This is one inning. If you can't do that, he shouldn't be there.
Text line 855-282-8255. The thumb out of water says, Charlie, do you think when Clayton Kershaw is laying in bed at night thinking about stuff, any negative thoughts creep into his mind about the past? He's got to be saying, here we go again, those freaking Cardinals. And yes, I agree with that 100 million.
I love that.
%. It's true. If you're a Dodgers fan, you don't like that it's the Cardinals. I'm telling you. You don't like that it's the Cardinals. You remember that. Go back to 13-14 for that whole run. The Dodgers could not beat the Cardinals. Now, the Cardinals couldn't beat the Giants. But if you're the Dodgers, it wasn't too long ago that the Cardinals just ruined your life 2 different times. Big Boss Anoco says the turning point of the season was when Big Irish said the team sucked. Ideal situation is Waino into the big 3, or if he's taken out a bit early, have Hudson bridge the gap. He looked pretty good, assuming he looks the same through the rest of the season. Let's see. Big Boss also saying the Cardinals are for sure winning it all. Shannon is going to go out on top, just like TLR. And I asked about the one-game wild card because as great as Adam Wainwright has been, I don't anticipate him going 7 innings against the Dodgers. Right? Postseason baseball is different. Also, you got a really extremely short hook in a wild card, 1-game, do-or-die game. So I could see Adam Wainwright pitching well, but he might only go 5. And that's why my question is more so, let me ask you this, Jim. Yes. Do you feel confident using Alex Reyes in a high-leverage situation in the wild card game?
I do more now, having watched him the last couple times out. He's still going to get a little walk here or there that's going to put me on edge, but I think he's over the funk that he was in. I really think so. He's looked much better. He'll get a couple more tosses here this week for sure. Before then, we'll get a better feel for it. But at this point, I think he's a weapon. I think he's part of that 6-man group that I talked about in the bullpen. And that was also one of the things I said about 3 weeks ago before this thing really started to amp up. Somebody asked me, well, what has to happen? I didn't say they needed to win 16 games in a row, but I said one of the things that has to happen for this team to be on a run again, Alex Reyes has to be a weapon again in the bullpen. And I think you can start to say he's well on his way to being a weapon again in the bullpen. He doesn't have to be the closer, but he can be, in an 8th, 7th, even a 6th inning situation where you got runners on base that he can come in and be a weapon for you.
And I ask that because I just wonder if Waino goes 5, maybe you need to bring in a TJ McFarland for a left on left, but that could be a situation if Jack Flaherty proves he's right. That could be a situation where a Jack Flaherty could give you 1 1.3, 1 2/3 to potentially get you to Cabrera, Luis Garcia, and Gio Gallegos. Because I don't know if anybody besides the guys I just mentioned are going to pitch in the wild card game. Unless something crazy happens, right? Unless Waino goes 2 innings. If you're Mike Schilt, do you want to use anybody right now besides McFarland, Cabrera on the left side, Gio, Luis Garcia, and I just don't know if he has great confidence in Alex Reyes right now. I'm not sure in a tie game, let's say, in the 6th inning type situation where you can't walk somebody.
From the right side, I mean, he's probably the 3rd option right now, but he's a really good 3rd option if he's right. And that's what makes this playoff scenario more interesting. This is the thing you just pointed out. I think the Cardinals got a better bullpen than the Dodgers. Therefore, you're going to manage the game differently. Oh, we got 2 guys on in the 5th. We can't let this happen. We got to go get them, right? I mean, that's the thinking in today's game. Well, who has more arms in the pen that they can rely on right now? Probably the Cardinals, unless the Dodgers are going to say, well, Arias and Kershaw and Price and all those guys are available. Then you go, okay, that's a little different. But if they're not doing that, the 6 that you just rattled off, you go, I'll take my chances with that group.
Right, and they probably would bring an Urias out of the pen for that game. It is just funny, though, that if they were to bring a Kershaw out of the pen, like Cardinal fans would feel really good. I'm not saying that he wouldn't do well.
No,
but just from a mentality standpoint.
There is most other teams go, oh, my God, Kershaw. Cardinals like, okay.
This is where we live.
We're good.
Joe Boo's Rum on the text line says, guys, the real turnaround started when the relief pitchers stopped walking hitters, especially walking hitters with the bases loaded. That is true. The Bo Weevil of Bevo Mill says, Charlie and Jim, when the Cardinals play the L.A. Dodgers, can we get Matt Adams to suit up and be in the dugout or be the bat boy to stare Clayton Kershaw down? I don't know if he'd want to be the bat boy, but I bet you could get him in the stands there. Crestwood Coyote says, the 19 Blues and 21 Cardinals have given GMs across their leagues leverage to tell owners, hey, let's stand still and not make moves at the deadline. Look what those teams did, from the Crestwood Coyote. And it's fair to say not make big moves. The Cardinals did make some moves where they didn't look big, but let's be real. Let's give them credit. Nobody said anything about Luis Garcia. It's been a great move. Nobody said anything about TJ McFarland. It's been a great move. We all laughed at Jay Happ and John Lester. Those have been great moves. So, look, it is what it is. You got to give the Cardinals credit for what they've done, and they've put themselves in a position for a one-game wild card. Okay, maybe you do that sooner. Hey, maybe if you get one of these pitchers in the offseason, maybe you're playing for the division this week. But either way, at this point in the season, you're happy that you're most likely going to have a one-game wild card at least for the St. Louis Cardinals.